Imagine a time when the idea of democracy didn't even exist. Now, picture a small group of people in ancient Greece, turning the tide of history. What if I told you that the very system we use to govern ourselves today was born from their groundbreaking ideas? In this video, we'll explore how the ancient Greeks created democracy, and how their innovations still impact our lives centuries later. Let's dive in. The concept of democracy, as we understand it today, didn't always exist. For much of history, most societies were ruled by kings, emperors, or powerful elites who made decisions for the people. However, everything began to change in the city of Athens, a small but influential state in ancient Greece around the 5th century BCE. Before democracy took root, Athens was governed by monarchs, and later by aristocrats, a select group of wealthy families who held all the political power. Ordinary citizens had no say in how the city was run. But over time, the idea of a government shaped by its people began to emerge, marking the first steps toward what we now call democracy. A key figure in this transformation was Solon, an early lawmaker in Athens who came to power around 594 BCE. Solon's reforms were a turning point, as he introduced laws that aimed to reduce the power of the aristocracy and offer more rights to the common people. For example, he ended the practice of debt slavery, where poor citizens were forced into servitude to pay off their debts. Though his changes weren't full democracy, it created a fairer society and laid the groundwork for the idea of equal rights for citizens. The next major reformer was Cleisthenes. It's often called the father of Athenian democracy. Around 508 BCE, Cleisthenes implemented a series of reforms that would forever change the way Athens was governed. He reorganized the city's population into 10 tribes, each of which sent representatives to a council called the Bull. This move marked the beginning of a system where citizens could have a direct role in governance. Cleisthenes also established the ecclesia, or assembly, where all male citizens could meet to discuss important issues and vote on laws. What made Cleisthenes' reforms so revolutionary was that they gave everyday citizens a voice in their government. Rather than leaving political power in the hands of a few elite families, while women, slaves, and foreigners were still excluded from the political process. For the first time, a large portion of Athens' population could participate in making decisions that shaped their lives. This was a bold shift from the previous system where only the wealthy held power. Athenian democracy began to take shape with direct democracy, a system in which citizens didn't elect officials to make decisions for them, but instead voted on laws and policies directly. This model was unlike anything seen in other societies at the time, where leaders made decisions without consulting the people. In Athens, ordinary citizens could influence decisions about war, taxes, and public policy, creating a more participatory government. Although Athenian democracy had its flaws and limitations, it represented a groundbreaking shift in the way people could govern themselves. The experiment in Athens demonstrated the power of ordinary citizens to shape their own destiny and set the stage for future democratic systems that would spread throughout the world. In ancient Athens, democracy was just about voting on laws or choosing leaders. It was about the active participation of its citizens in all aspects of governance. While today many of us vote for representatives to make decisions on our behalf, the Athenian system was different. It called for all eligible citizens to be directly involved in making decisions that affected their city-state. But who exactly counted as a citizen? In Athens, a citizen was typically a free-born male whose parents were both Athenian. Women, slaves, and foreigners were excluded from the political process, meaning that only a small percentage of the population had a voice in how the city was run. However, for those who were citizens, the opportunity to participate in the government was unprecedented. One of the most important institutions in Athens' democracy was the ecclesia, or assembly, where citizens gathered to discuss and vote on critical decisions. From laws to military actions, these meetings were held regularly, and any male citizen could attend and voice their opinion. This allowed for a level of direct participation that is rare in modern political systems. Citizens weren't simply spectators, they were active contributors to the political discourse of their city. In addition to the assembly, Athens also used a system of sortition to select officials for government roles. Instead of electing leaders based on popularity or wealth, certain positions were filled by random selection. This ensured that government positions were dominated by the wealthy elite and allowed ordinary citizens to take on the responsibilities of leadership. This practice was a crucial part of the Athenian democratic experiment, providing an opportunity for any citizen, regardless of their status, to participate in the administration of the city. Furthermore, citizens were expected to serve in the military, as defense was considered a communal responsibility. Military service wasn't just a duty, it was an integral part of civic life. It reinforced the idea that everyone, not just a small group of elite soldiers, played a role in protecting Athens. While Athenian democracy had its shortcomings, particularly in its exclusion of women, slaves, and non-citizens, set the foundation for the modern democratic ideals we hold today. The direct involvement of citizens in governance was a revolutionary concept, one that highlighted the importance of participation and equality before the law. Even though Athenian democracy was far from perfect, it was a groundbreaking step toward the inclusive, participatory systems we see in the world today. Athenian democracy didn't just arise from political reforms. It was also shaped by the ideas and philosophies of some of the most famous thinkers in history. These philosophers didn't just live in Athens, they played a crucial role in developing and refining the concepts that underpinned Athenian democracy and inspired political thought for centuries. The most influential philosopher in ancient Athens was Socrates, who is often considered the father of Western philosophy. Although Socrates didn't leave behind written works, his teachings were passed down through his students, most notably Plato. Socrates introduced the Socratic method, a way of questioning that encouraged critical thinking and self-reflection. This method wasn't just about seeking answers. It was about asking the right questions, challenging assumptions, and probing deeper into ideas. For Socrates, democracy was just about voting or participating in political processes. It was about critical thinking and philosophical inquiry. He believed that a true democracy required citizens to be educated, thoughtful, and able to engage in discussions that challenged existing ideas and practices. While he believed in the potential of democracy, he was also aware of its dangers, particularly when people voted based on emotions or ignorance rather than reason. Socrates' ideas were carried on by his student Plato, who had a more critical view of Athenian democracy. In his work The Republic, Plato argued that democracy could easily lead to chaos. Because ordinary citizens were not always wise enough to make decisions for the common good, he believed that only a group of highly educated philosopher kings should govern, as they would be the most knowledgeable and just rulers. While Plato's ideal government was far from the democracy practiced in Athens, his writings sparked a deeper debate about who should hold power and what it meant to govern well. Aristotle, Plato's student, took a more pragmatic approach. In his work Politics, Aristotle classified different forms of government, including democracy. He saw democracy as a system where power is in the hands of the many, but he also warned that it could devolve into mob rule if the majority made decisions based on passion rather than reason. Aristotle believed in a mixed government, combining elements of democracy with aristocracy and monarchy to ensure stability and fairness. He recognized the importance of a balanced system where the many and the few could work together to govern. These philosophers didn't just influence Athens, their ideas would go on to shape political thought for centuries. While they debated the merits and flaws of democracy, they all agreed on one thing: democracy requires an engaged and educated citizenry. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle's insights into governance, justice, and the role of individuals in society continue to impact modern democratic thought. Despite its groundbreaking beginnings, Athenian democracy didn't last forever. While Athens' democracy was a revolutionary system for its time, it eventually faced challenges that led to its decline. Both internal factors, such as political instability and the limitations of the democratic system, and external pressures, such as military defeat, played a role in the fall of Athens as a democratic power. One of the key challenges that Athenian democracy faced was political instability. The democratic system required the active participation of citizens in government, but as Athens grew, it became harder to manage. The frequent meetings of the ecclesia, the assembly, and the use of sortition to fill government positions meant that decision-making, could often be inefficient and chaotic. Additionally, the populist leaders who rose to power during times of crisis often made decisions based on short-term emotional appeals rather than reasoned debate. This instability made Athens vulnerable to both internal division and external threats. The Peloponnesian War 431 to 404 BCE, a protracted conflict between Athens and its rival, Sparta, significantly weakened the city-state. Athens lost the war, and its political system began to unravel. In the aftermath of defeat, Athens experienced a brief period of oligarchy, known as the 30 Tyrants, where a small group of rulers took control and dismantled the democratic system. While democracy was restored a few years later, the damage had been done. Athens' power and influence in the region were severely diminished. As the city-state weakened, Athens faced increased pressure from outside forces. The rise of Macedonian power under King Philip II, and later his son Alexander the Great, further eroded Athens' autonomy. After the conquests of Alexander, Athens became part of the Macedonian Empire, and its democratic system was no longer a dominant force in the Greek world. Although Athens' democracy ended, its legacy continued to influence future generations. The ideas of democracy, citizen participation, and equality before the law survived in the intellectual traditions of Greece, and later in the development of Roman and modern democratic systems. Although Athenian democracy was short-lived, its influence on the world today is undeniable. The principles of citizen participation, equality before the law, and government accountability continue to shape modern democratic systems. The ideas that took root in ancient Athens have inspired political thought across centuries and across cultures, leaving a legacy that still impacts how we think about governance and the rights of individuals. The concept of citizenship, where people actively participate in their government, was a core part of Athenian democracy, and it continues to resonate today. In modern democracies, citizens vote, express their opinions, and hold their governments accountable, just as Athenians did centuries ago. Although today's democracies may differ in structure, the underlying belief that the people should have a role in their governance remains a central theme. Moreover, the idea of direct democracy, where citizens vote on laws and policies themselves, continues to influence political systems, particularly in countries like Switzerland, where referendums allow citizens to vote on key issues. While modern systems are more likely to use representative democracy, where elected officials make decisions for the people, the roots of these systems can be traced back to Athens. The rule of law, a principle that no one is above the law, is another key feature of Athenian democracy that has had a lasting impact. Today, we continue to uphold this ideal in democratic societies, where the legal system applies equally to all citizens. This ensures that government leaders cannot act above the law, a fundamental aspect of a fair and just society. Finally, the legacy of Athenian philosophers, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, has influenced political theory and the philosophy of governance for centuries. Their writings on justice, power, and the role of citizens in society continue to shape our understanding of democracy today. While Athenian democracy may have faced many challenges and ultimately collapsed, its influence has endured. The core ideals of participation, equality, and civic responsibility remain as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago, reminding us that democracy is an ever-evolving system that requires constant effort and engagement to thrive. As we look back at the rise and fall of Athenian democracy, it becomes clear that its legacy extends far beyond the confines of ancient Greece. The ideas and principles that emerged from the democratic experiment in Athens have left an indelible mark on political systems around the world. Although Athenian democracy may have been short-lived, the key concepts of equality, citizen participation, and government accountability continue to shape modern political systems in profound ways. One of the most significant legacies of Athenian democracy is the concept of citizenship and the rights and responsibilities that come with it. In Athens, citizenship was not a passive status. It required active engagement in political life. Citizens were expected to vote, participate in government assemblies, and even serve in military and judicial roles. While modern democracies have evolved to allow for broader participation, including the inclusion of women, non-citizens, and marginalized groups, the central idea that citizens have both rights and duties remains foundational to democratic governance today. The idea of direct democracy was another revolutionary concept introduced by Athens. In Athenian democracy, citizens participated directly in the decision-making process. This direct involvement was a stark contrast to the representative systems of governance that would later become the norm in most modern democracies. While the scale of modern societies makes direct democracy less feasible today, many aspects of the Athenian model still resonate in systems that prioritize the active participation of citizens, such as referendums and local councils. The belief that ordinary people can and should have a say in the laws and policies that govern their lives continues to be a cornerstone of democratic thought. The rule of law, a principle that no one, not even rulers, is above the law, is another crucial element that Athens contributed to the world. In Athens, laws were created by citizens and applied equally to all citizens, regardless of wealth or status. While modern societies may not always fully live up to this ideal, the idea that the law should apply equally to all people remains central to democratic systems worldwide. The notion that laws should protect individual rights and freedoms rather than serve the interests of a ruling elite continues to guide legal frameworks around the world. Athenian democracy also taught us the importance of accountability in government. In Athens, public officials were not permanent figures, could be held accountable for their actions, and in some cases, they could even be removed from office if the citizens so decided. This idea of political accountability, the belief that those in power must answer to the people, is central to modern democratic systems. Today, elected officials are held accountable through mechanisms such as elections, impeachment, and judicial review. This ensures that leaders do not abuse their power and that the voice of the people remains heard. Perhaps one of the most enduring legacies of Athenian democracy is the idea of public debate. In Athens, citizens were encouraged to participate in open discussions about the city's laws, policies, and future. This tradition of open dialogue and intellectual debate has carried over into modern democratic societies, where freedom of speech and expression are fundamental rights. The ability to question, challenge, and debate ideas is a key feature of a healthy democracy, and it ensures that governments remain responsive to the needs and concerns of the people they serve. Even though Athenian democracy was not perfect, there were significant limitations, such as the exclusion of women, slaves, and non-citizens. It was a groundbreaking experiment in self-governance. The flaws of the Athenian system highlight the challenges that all democracies face: how to balance the power of the majority with the rights of the minority, how to ensure that leaders remain accountable to the people, and how to create a system where all voices are heard. These challenges remain just as relevant today as they were in ancient Athens, and they continue to be the subject of political debate and reform in democratic societies around the world. The decline of Athenian democracy does not erase its significance in history. While Athens eventually fell under external pressures, first from Sparta and then from Macedon, the ideas of democracy that emerged there would continue to inspire future generations. After the fall of Athens, the Roman Republic, and later the Roman Empire, adopted certain elements of Athenian democratic thought, particularly the idea of civic participation and the role of the citizen in governance. The ideals of Athenian democracy were further revived during the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, periods in history that saw a renewed interest in Greek philosophy and democratic principles. The influence of Athenian democracy can also be seen in the founding of modern democratic nations, particularly the United States of America. The U.S. Constitution, with its system of checks and balances, separation of powers, and emphasis on individual rights, draws heavily on ideas first discussed in Athens. The founding fathers of the United States, inspired by classical Greek philosophy, understood the importance of creating a government that would empower its citizens and protect their freedoms. The United States Bill of Rights, which guarantees freedoms such as speech, assembly, and the Pressicos, the democratic principles that first found expression in Athens. Today, the legacy of Athenian democracy continues to shape the global conversation about governance. From the Arab Spring uprisings to the ongoing struggles for democracy in authoritarian regimes, The ideals of Athens live on as a beacon of hope for those who seek freedom and justice. The idea that power should rest in the hands of the people, that government should serve the common good, and that citizens should be active participants in their democracy remains a powerful force worldwide. In conclusion, the story of Athenian democracy is not just the story of a city-state in ancient Greece. It is the story of an enduring idea that has traveled through time and across continents, inspiring countless people to believe in the power of ordinary citizens to govern themselves. While Athenian democracy faced many challenges, its principles continue to shape our understanding of freedom, justice, and the role of government. The lasting impact of Athens is clear. Democracy, in all its forms, is a living, evolving ideal that calls upon each generation to protect and uphold it for the benefit of all people.